all those moments will be lost in time.
Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So, I'm nervous for today's video. I'm really nervous, and I typically don't get nervous because it's not that deep. The fans of Shane and Jeffree, like certain fans, not all of them obviously, can be a little bit intense, so I might get canceled. I'm just kidding, you guys know I don't really believe in canceling. But anyway, I'm gonna talk about the Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star docu-series, and I'm gonna get into the term docu-series because anyway, the one disclaimer I want to put out is that this video is about the series and not the actual people. So if I say something, I'm not judging the worth of a human being. Like, that's not what this video is about. I'm talking specifically about the series. So in this video, I will be listing things that I didn't like, and then I will also be listing things that I did like. So we're gonna do pros and cons, but I'm going to be critical nonetheless because no one's above critique. Sorry if I look down, but I made some notes so I don't forget anything. So let's start with the things I had a problem with, because I'm pretty sure that's what anyone gives a shit about anyway. These are the chapters of things I didn't like. Not a documentary series, disorganization / lack of direction, repetition, overdramatization, and quality concerns. A documentary is defined as a movie or a television or radio program that provides a factual record or report. In the series, as much as at certain points there were facts given, like how much they could make off the pallet or how much they've made in the past, that's pretty much the only fact that was given. I did not get the documentary series vibe here because, first of all, as much as documentaries can be biased, most people don't do documentary series on their friends and their business because it's obviously biased. I just don't feel like there were enough facts given to make it a documentary series, so I wouldn't use that title. If anything, I just call them vlogs that show some of the procedures someone goes through to make a palette or to make lipsticks or whatever the hell. The other thing that also makes this not a documentary for me is that a documentary usually is very organized, and we're gonna get into the lack of organization, but I didn't find that here. I didn't find it meticulously organized. Like, a documentary typically will have a very particular route and a very particular way of explaining everything in detail. And here there were a lot of things that were not explained, and that's fine, but like I said, this to me read more as vlog. This is kind of about Shane because, you know, he's the one making them really with Andrew. But what I've noticed with other series that Shane has done, he is too empathetic and compassionate to make documentaries. And I'm saying that not as a slight, but it's just like, if you are a person who desperately believes that anyone is redeemable and anyone can make a comeback and that everyone is a good person, every documentary series you're gonna have is going to kind of have the same trajectory, which is kind of what we saw with Jake Paul and kind of what we saw with Tana. I still think they're both crap people, but I did see that he was trying to show, oh, there's this other side of them that's better. And while everyone probably has a positive side, save some people, it also feels like he already decides the outcome before we see the outcome. So I don't think documentaries are Shane's strength because he is empathetic and compassionate to that degree. At least that's what we see on camera. A lot of people were pissed because the trailer didn't really represent what the series ended up being. To be honest, I didn't really care. I wasn't, you know, like up in arms or really excited. I think I was pretty neutral going into it because I'm not really a stan of either Shane or Jeffree. Like, I'll watch it, but it's not this do or die massive life-changing thing. I'll be excited for certain episodes, but that really is the extent of my emotional involvement. The trailer wasn't entirely representative, and Shane himself said the series took a different direction. Now, there is no problem for me with changing the trajectory of these vlogs because, you know, some new information has come up or you become more interested in one thing rather than the other. The thing is, it looks extremely disorganized because you're essentially gone for a year and you have a plan of what you're gonna do, and then you kind of throw the plan out the window, and then it seems like he was winging it because a lot of the times he'd edit the episode like the day before or just a couple hours before. That doesn't mean that everything is disorganized, but that also doesn't inspire me to think everything was extremely thought out. Like I said, changing your mind is one thing, but if I were to do a series that I would title a docu-series, you'd think that I would try to map things out as much as possible. So even when he changed his plan to make it less about drama and more about business, he could have still mapped out how he would go about that, but it didn't seem like there was a real decision made there. That's just my opinion. Also, changing the mini controversy palette seemingly last minute. Now, obviously, they might have put crazy amounts of thought into it. At the same time, though, if you're gonna make the mini controversy palette the original one and sell it as such, and then later you decide you're gonna change it, it makes me a little bit suspicious because I'm like, okay, so either you weren't really feeling the mini controversy, but you still felt okay to sell the original one as it was, or you're realizing that maybe more money could be made by selling the single. They're also gonna sell the shade as a single, but at the same time, some people might just buy the whole palette again. So I don't know, I just felt a little bit weird about that because it seemed kind of random, and the whole emphasis of the series was how much work goes into this, so it seemed a little bit counterintuitive to include a last minute change for a product that took forever to develop, apparently. Then the skipping in time was anticlimactic. I personally prefer chronological order just for my own keeping tabs. Just it's easier for me to track a story when it's chronological. I typically get frustrated when stories aren't chronological simply because, like I said, it's harder for me to keep track. So this is a personal preference. So maybe this didn't bother anyone else. It felt like in the middle of a story, they'd switch and start telling you another story, and you're like, okay, wait, but what happened to story number one? And it's like, you'll find out maybe in 2 episodes when they come back to this point. And I don't know, I didn't really like that. And it didn't feel like, to me anyway, there was a particular purpose. Like sometimes there were switches and I didn't understand what the correlation was. Like, why would you switch from this month to that month? Does that make sense? And maybe I just missed, you know, the indicators. Maybe there was some reason I didn't get. So typically, this is gonna sound shady, but I really don't mean it to. Typically, the videos only contained about 20 minutes maybe of worthwhile content, and then the rest was fluff, or, you know, not particularly relevant, or I don't think the reason why people were watching was for that content. I think most people watched for the 20-minute content. And a big part of these videos only having, you know, 20 minutes of worthwhile content when some of them were an hour to an hour and 20 minutes, it just felt like sometimes I was watching the same episode over and over again. Like, of course there are going to be themes in a series, that's obvious, but it's different to have a theme and to have near to identical repetition of reactions or just behavior overall. I don't know. I don't feel like, if I think back now, I don't think I can differentiate what happened in which episode. I genuinely don't think I can, and I tend to have an okay memory about things like that. So maybe that's telling, maybe that's just me being a dumbass. Many reactions felt intensified, so like there would be something that would happen, it'd be like a small occurrence, but yet the reaction, you know, Shane or Jeffree had was this massive like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, like, what's happening, like that's crazy, that's wild, and it's like most of the time nothing was happening. And I think this is the thing that frustrated me the most, and I'm not saying that those aren't their real reactions, I'm just saying that to me they seemed a little too much. You know, like being emotional when the palette came out, that makes sense because that's what they've been working toward this whole fucking time. So that I can, you know, understand that you'd be emotional to see something come to life like that. It seemed like all these small events are made into a big deal. Like when they found the tea bag on the ground and picked it up, and then they turned it into this thing that had a deep existential meaning and fate and destiny and all this other crap. And if you believe in that, that's fine, you know, like I to a certain extent believe in like fate, but I don't really think a tea bag on the ground is really it. I think this overdramatization made it less relatable to me because being excited when your palette comes out, yes, I could relate to that because if I imagine myself in that position, I'd also be excited, I'd be emotional, whatever. But But I'm not emotional like that about small things. Like, I will only say, oh my god, if something I deem significant is happening. If I put on the wrong sock, I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Oh my god, can you believe it?
That's crazy, sickening. Like, no, there's no need. Like, I'm tired just after saying that. I don't relate to that, and that's my own personal thing as well. So that's, you know, not necessarily their fault. Like I said, I really wanted to focus on the series itself. I didn't really want to go into the products specifically, but this has to do with this series, so I'm going to mention the fact that certain of the palettes, they found fibers in them. Jeffree Star has responded. It seems like it's getting taken care of. Who knows, you know, like what the real truth is anyway. But I think this quality concern, the reason I'm bringing it up is because it already kind of felt a little bit like the quality might be lacking when they switched the mini controversy palette from the OG to the one we have now. Like, that felt a little bit like meh, because like I said, did they not like it before, or are they switching it now for other reasons? Like, it just makes you ask questions that pertain to quality. Aside from that, in terms of quality concerns, people also saw this as a cash grab, like this entire series as a cash grab, and to be honest, that's understandable. I'm not sure where I stand on that one, because in a way I relate to diving into something head first. Obviously, I've never made a palette, but when I started doing makeup, it came kind of out of nowhere. Until I was, I think, 21, I didn't even own foundation. Yikes. I literally only had eyeshadow. I was very bad at makeup. But then all of a sudden I just started trying it, and it came kind of out of nowhere. So in a way, I can understand that happens. Some people dive in head first. At the same time, I can also see why some people would be like, you know, like, where did this come from? This seems like convenient or, you know, manipulative. So I see both sides. I don't really have a stance on that particular one. I, however, will say I personally did not get the color story of anything. Essentially. I mean, the lippies kind of, but the palettes, they weren't my jam. I do like the packaging. So let's get to the stuff I enjoyed. There are two things in particular, and that is the business aspect and opening up. Like I said, we didn't get that much, but I did enjoy the sections when they talked about production timing as well as money. I thought that was the most interesting thing to me because, you know, like, that's just kind of a secretive thing that people aren't extremely open about. And I also found it super interesting and rewarding to hear about like Kylie Cosmetics and how much a palette was worth versus how much they'd charge, and even in comparison to how much a Jeffree Star palette is worth and how much they charge. I just found the business aspects a lot more interesting because I kind of knew they weren't really gonna discuss the drama. I just never believed that they would, so I guess I wasn't disappointed because I didn't expect it anyway. Though we can't say what's true and what's not, right? You know, like Jeffree and Shane can say whatever, and really there's some things we can't confirm because we don't have that information. But to me, it seemed like Jeffree and Shane were at least somewhat open to showing more than other brands have, and I appreciate showing more than other brands have, because as much as I've watched a lot of beauty related videos, there are just some questions that I feel like are always unanswered, and Jeffree and Shane did answer some of those, though I wish they'd answered more, because I really do think that that was the content a lot of people wanted to see. Of course they wanted to see the drama, but I'm pretty sure no one would be disinterested at how much money you make or details in production or things that can go wrong, you know? One main thing I wanted to say, because I was thinking about this and I was telling some of my friends about it, and you know, I'm struggling if I'm in sweatpants, but I feel like a lot of the time creators are given this crazy kind of power or this crazy pedestal where it feels like if you critique them, you're done. Like, that's why I made a joke about being canceled, because I really feel like Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star are kind of inspired that almost inconceivable that they'd be critiqued. And of course, nobody likes their favorite to be critiqued, but at the same time, we shouldn't amp these people up to the point where they don't even feel like they're people anymore and like they're this massive legend, icon, myth that still can't be touched, you know? And I'm not saying drag them necessarily. I'm just saying it shouldn't be kind of low-key scary to talk about them, but I find it low-key scary, and maybe that's my own hang-up.
So originally I used the term vitriol, but thinking over it, that's not really the term I want to use. What I meant to say is that because they're put on such a pedestal, whenever someone critiques them, it's taken as like hate or bashing, when the reality is some critiques are valid and some are just malevolent, but we can't lump them all together because they're different.
But I know a lot of people probably wouldn't want to talk about it because almost every opinion is unpopular in some ways. And the reason I thought I had an unpopular opinion, and I might be wrong, was that I don't feel extreme in any direction. Like, I know some people die hard love them, some people die hard hate them, and I'm just neither. I kind of am just there, watching, enjoying certain parts, not enjoying other parts. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.